For example, just to add to it, The Guardian says that the UN investigators found evidence that you did engage in, quote, non-consensual sexual contact towards your accuser.
So Mehdi Hasan just cornered ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan in his first public interview since stepping aside over misconduct allegations. This is explosive because Khan was pursuing Netanyahu for war crimes when these allegations mysteriously surfaced. Let's break down how international justice is being weaponized.
You've taken voluntary leave from your role at the ICC as the UN investigated sexual misconduct allegations made against you by a female staff at the ICC. This past March, a panel of 3 judges commissioned by the ICC, separate from the UN investigators, unanimously concluded that the UN's investigation into those allegations, quote, do not establish misconduct or breach of duty under the relevant framework.
Here's the key detail everyone's missing. Khan voluntarily stepped aside and was unanimously cleared by 3 independent judges. That's not how guilty people behave. The judges had full access to evidence and found the UN investigation didn't establish misconduct. Case should be closed.
Yet instead of you now returning to the ICC back to your job, there is a group of countries within the ICC, part of what is called the Assembly of State Parties, or ASP Bureau, which could still decide that you did engage in, quote, serious misconduct and force a vote of the entire assembly, all 125 ICC member countries, to remove you from your post.
This is judicial overreach on steroids. A unanimous panel of judges clears Khan, but politicians want to override that decision. The Assembly of State Parties is essentially saying they know better than the actual judges who reviewed all the evidence. That's not how justice works.
They would say, and you said a few countries, in early April, the majority of this ASP Bureau, including states like Belgium, Italy, Ecuador, Brazil, they voted in favor of making a, quote, initial determination that you may have committed, quote, some form of misconduct, even despite that conclusion from the panel of judges effectively clearing you of the misconduct charge. They would say it may be an ad hoc process, but the rules at the beginning made it very clear that the judge's decision was not binding.
Notice the admission here. The process is ad hoc, meaning they're making up rules as they go. Belgium, Italy, and others are moving goalposts because they didn't get their desired outcome. When judges clear someone, politicians shouldn't get a do-over vote.
You're saying The Guardian, New York Times, because we haven't seen the report. They haven't released it. I haven't seen it. I'm going off what The Guardian and New York Times say they've seen.
This exposes the whole game. Selective leaks to friendly media outlets while denying Khan and the public access to the actual report. It's classic disinformation. Control the narrative through strategic leaks while hiding the full evidence that might exonerate the target.
You, Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, are denying the allegations of sexual misconduct from a staffer at the ICC. You're also denying that you had any kind of relationship with her.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Khan's denial here is crystal clear and unequivocal, yet most media coverage buries his direct response while amplifying unsubstantiated rumors. Compare how they treat his categorical denials versus how they breathlessly report every leaked allegation against him.
The panel of judges in your case, because you said you were exonerated, you used that word, they actually say that there was, quote, insufficient evidence to support a finding of misconduct. They ultimately could not, this is their words, quote, make a definitive proclamation on the existence or absence of the alleged misconduct. They say in their executive summary that they were deeply frustrated with the UN report. They say the investigators failed to establish, quote, where the truth lies, leaving the panel with, quote, many unresolved factual disputes.
The judges weren't frustrated with Khan. They were frustrated with the UN investigators who botched the probe, failed to establish where the truth lies, and many unresolved factual disputes. That's scathing criticism of the investigation itself, not Khan.
There has been, as you know, criticism of the judges for making their decision based on a criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, instead of the civil evidentiary standard, which is balance of probabilities, more likely than not. Could that be why the ASP Bureau countries haven't readily accepted the judge's opinion in your case? Isn't that a fair criticism from women's rights groups and others of this judge's opinion clearing you? Even the former head of Human Rights Watch, Ken Roth, he asked recently on Twitter why the judges applied beyond a reasonable doubt, because he said that's a criminal standard, not usually for workplace issues.
Now they're moving goalposts again, demanding lower evidence standards after losing under the proper standard. Khan faces potential war crimes charges from hostile states. Of course he deserves the strongest evidentiary protections. This is exactly how show trials operate.
Do you believe that the US's campaign against the ICC may be influencing the ASP Bureau's decisions in your case? That perhaps some of these countries may be working with the Trump administration or fear retribution from the Trump administration?
The timing is everything. Trump sanctioned the ICC in January 2025, and Khan requested Netanyahu warrants in May 2024. These misconduct allegations surfaced right as pressure mounted for Israeli accountability. That's not coincidence. That's coordinated political retaliation.
There is this theory or allegation that this is all politicized. This is about Israel. This is about the US putting pressure on countries. Why would Brazil also vote against you, a country which is quite pro-Palestine, which joined the South African case against Israel at the ICJ?
Brazil shows how international pressure campaigns create cascading effects. Even pro-Palestinian countries don't want to be isolated when the US is threatening sanctions and diplomatic consequences. Fear of Trump administration retaliation overrides principled stances on justice.
With Benjamin Netanyahu accusing you of requesting arrest warrants against him and Yoav Gallant as a way to distract from the allegations that you knew were against you within the ICC. What is your response to that line of argument?
Netanyahu's timeline argument collapses under scrutiny. The warrants were in development long before these allegations surfaced. This is classic deflection. Accused war criminals always attack prosecutors' credibility rather than address the underlying evidence against them.
Dropsite News, which is a left-wing media outlet quite critical of Israel, they reported that people familiar with the case said that the process for the warrants suddenly appeared to be, quote, rushed and even, quote, panicked once they saw it in light of the allegations against you. What do you say in response to those staffers who clearly spoke to Dropsite?
Even left-wing outlets are spreading disinformation about rushed warrants. Professional prosecutors don't panic and rush major cases. They follow established procedures. This narrative is planted to delegitimize Khan's work and delay accountability for Israeli war crimes.
The UN report states that multiple accounts discredit the suggestion that your accuser, this female Muslim Malaysian staffer, I believe, was linked to the Mossad. The Guardian newspaper has reported, however, that, quote, pro-Israel actors do appear to have been active in leaking information about her complaint against you. Have you or your legal team found any involvement of Israel or its proxies in the complaint against you?
The Guardian admits pro-Israel actors leaked information about the complaint. That's Intelligence Operations 101, weaponizing personal allegations to neutralize threats. The timing and coordination prove this wasn't organic whistleblowing, but calculated political warfare against Khan.
When the judge's decision came out, several UN officials, including Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, and Special Rapporteur on the right to housing, Balakrishnan Rajagopal, they both celebrated the decision, with Albanese writing, quote, those who stand for justice must ensure that you will not be removed by the, quote, pro-apartheid camp, she said. If you are ultimately voted out by the full Assembly of State Parties, where would that leave the ICC and the UN in your view?
Albanese nailed it. This is the pro-apartheid camp trying to remove Khan. If they succeed, it proves international justice only applies to Africa and weak states. Netanyahu, Putin, and future war criminals will know they can neutralize prosecutors through character assassination.
And if the countries decide not to kick you out and you win this battle of yours, can you just go back to work tomorrow and pick up all the cases where you left off, especially the Israel case? How does it work?
The delay itself serves Israeli interests perfectly. Gaza's genocide continues while Khan sits sidelined and Netanyahu remains free. Even if Khan wins, months of crucial time were lost. The process became the punishment, exactly what his opponents wanted.